A former detective turned pimp notices something terrifying. Every woman he sends to one specific customer disappears without a trace. At first, he thinks they simply ran away. But when he discovers the same phone number connected to every missing girl, he realizes the truth. The man his women have been meeting isn't a normal customer. He's a serial killer. Now, with only hours before another victim is gone forever, a corrupt system, careless police, and a killer playing mind games stand between him and the woman he sent into hell. But before we reveal what happens next, hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell icon so you never miss another unbelievable movie story. The film opens in the grim streets of Seoul, where Joong-ho, a rude and hot-tempered former detective, now works as a pimp. He manages a small group of women, sending them to clients across the city. Recently, however, things have started falling apart. Several of the women working under him have suddenly disappeared without explanation. At first, Joong-ho brushes it off, assuming they simply abandoned the job and ran away. But as more of them continue vanishing one after another, the pattern becomes impossible to ignore. For the first time, a sense of unease begins creeping in. Joong-ho receives a call from Pighead, one of his associates. A regular client has started causing problems again, repeatedly rejecting the women sent to him and demanding someone different each time. That night, only one person is available, Kim Mi-jin. She is sick and clearly unfit to work, but Joong-ho ignores her condition and orders her to go anyway. Mi-jin tries to explain, but Joong-ho loses patience and threatens to come there and drag her out himself. Realizing arguing is pointless, Mi-jin reluctantly gives in. After the call, Joong-ho reaches for his cigarettes and accidentally knocks his phone behind the desk. While searching for it, he grabs a different phone instead, one belonging to one of his missing girls. He powers the phone on and checks the call history. He takes note of the last number she contacted before disappearing. The digits end in 4885. Joong-ho quickly rushes to his client records and matches the number to a regular customer. That client was the last person to meet several of the missing women, and now Mi-jin is going to meet him too. The realization hits him hard. He suspects the client is likely behind the disappearances. Joong-ho quickly calls Mi-jin and learns she is already with the client. Growing uneasy, he warns her to stay alert and send him the address the moment they arrive. Meanwhile, Mi-jin sits quietly in the passenger seat, carefully observing the man beside her. His name is Young-min, an ordinary middle-aged, soft-spoken man. But the longer she studies him, the more unsettled she becomes. There is something cold and empty behind his eyes. When Young-min asks who called her earlier, Mi-jin explains her boss is checking on her, as she isn't feeling well. The car soon moves away from the lit streets into quieter, darker streets. Mi-jin watches the route carefully, noting landmarks and street signs, some part of her already preparing for what might come. They arrive at a small, isolated house. The yard looks stale and unsettling, hemmed in by overgrown vegetation, the kind of place that swallows sound. Young-min invites her in calmly. The moment Mi-jin steps inside the house, her uneasiness deepens. Young-min offers her a drink, but Mi-jin says she wants to freshen up first. Without hesitation, he directs her to the bathroom. Once inside, Mi-jin immediately turns on the shower to cover any noise before trying to text Joong-ho her location. The message fails to go through due to no cell service. Even the small window refuses to open, sealed tightly shut. As Mi-jin looks into the bathtub, she sees a piece of fresh human scalp with hair still attached. Panic surges through her, but she forces herself to stay calm. She steps back into the living room and tells Young-min she forgot something in the car, carefully keeping her voice steady and natural. Young-min simply nods. Mi-jin walks to the front door, only to find it deadbolted shut. Young-min lets out an unsettling chuckle. Back at his apartment, Joong-ho calls Mi-jin repeatedly but can't reach her. He tries the client's number next, the one ending in 4885, but the line is dead. Out of options, he calls his former boss, Detective Oh Yoon-seok, who is currently on duty. Joong-ho tries to relay what he's discovered, but Oh is distracted. Joong-ho hangs up frustratingly. Growing increasingly restless, Joong-ho decides to track down the client himself, hoping he can still find Mi-jin before it is too late. Back at Young-min's house, he drops the nice guy act. Mi-jin is already restrained hand and foot. He enters the bathroom carrying a bag of tools and calmly sets it down. Inside are hooks, hammers, chisels, knives, and other instruments. One by one, he lays them out. While preparing his tools, he speaks to her in an almost casual tone. He asks if she knows Sujin, another of Joong-ho's girls. Mi-jin nods, trembling. Young-min narrates that he had to cut out Sujin's tongue because she would not stop screaming. Then the real torment begins. Young-min lifts a chisel and hammer over Mi-jin's head, carefully aiming for a specific spot in her skull. But she twists away, forcing the blow into the tiled floor instead. He tries again, and again. Each time, Mi-jin manages to dodge by a narrow margin, panic driving her reactions. On one of the swings, Young-min loses control and strikes his own finger, injuring himself. The pain snaps something in him. In a sudden surge of rage, he brings the hammer down on Mi-jin's head with full force, knocking her unconscious. Just then, the doorbell rings. Young-min pauses, slowly sets the hammer down, and goes to answer. At the gate stands an elderly couple from a nearby church. They are looking for the real owner of the house, Mr. Park, and even recognize his dog. Young-min tries to brush them off, but the couple remains persistent, asking detailed questions that make it harder to dismiss them. On second thought, Young-min invites them inside and murders them. He dumps their bodies in the bathroom beside Mi-jin's unconscious body. He then takes the man's car keys and decides to move their vehicle away from the property, not wanting anything suspicious left outside his home. Young-min drives through the narrow streets, searching for a place to park it unnoticed. As a blind corner, he collides with another vehicle. The furious driver immediately jumps out. It is Joong-ho, who has been driving through the area searching desperately for Mi-jin. The two men argue over the collision and the damage to their cars. But in the middle of the confrontation, Joong-ho notices there are bloodstains across Young-min's shirt. His instincts as a former detective begin taking over. Suspicious, he demands to see Young-min's phone and identification. Young-min hesitates. Without wasting another second, Joong-ho dials the number ending in 4885. Young-min's phone begins ringing inside his pocket. Joong-ho stares at him and orders him to answer the call, but Young-min freezes, awkwardly pretending to be ignorant. Young-min suddenly bolts. He sprints through the streets as Joong-ho chases after him, with desperation and fury. After a long pursuit, Joong-ho finally catches him and violently tackles him to the ground. He savagely beats Young-min to pulp. Joong-ho grabs his wallet and checks his identification, only to discover that it is an outdated ID. Joong-ho handcuffs him and drags him toward his car. Unfortunately, their crashed vehicles have already blocked the narrow street, attracting the attention of a nearby patrol officer. When the officer notices the handcuffs on Young-min and initially assumes Joong-ho is a detective. But the moment he asks which precinct he works for, Joong-ho hesitates. Unable to provide valid identification or explain himself properly, both men are arrested and shoved into a police car during transport. Joong-ho desperately tries to convince the officers they may have just captured a serial killer. At the station, the investigation drags through excessive procedures that get on Joong-ho's nerves. Young-min receives treatment for his injuries while Joong-ho is questioned over the assault. After repeated calls from Joong-ho, Detective Oh finally arrives, but even he struggles to believe the story. Then, Young-min suddenly admits to killing 9 people. He casually describes how he murders his victims with a chisel before hanging their bodies to drain the blood and sever them for disposal. Instead of feeling relieved by the confession, Joong-ho becomes even more furious. He realizes Young-min is putting on an act and pretending to be mentally unstable to manipulate the investigation. But as higher officials become involved, the situation begins to shift. Young-min withdraws the confession and claims everything was forced out of him through violence and intimidation after Joong-ho beat him unconscious. With no witnesses or physical evidence tying Young-min directly to the murders, the police are left with little legal ground to stand on. By law, they can only detain him for 24 hours, and as the deadline draws closer, panic begins spreading through the investigation. Young-min casually reveals that one of his victims may still be alive, referring to Mi-jin. The detectives try to get his address out of him, hoping there is still time to save her. But Young-min keeps behaving incoherently and pretending to be mentally unstable. Afterwards, officers are dispatched across the surrounding area, desperately searching for anything that could connect him to the missing women. Most of the attention shifts toward the hills near the neighborhood where Joong-ho met him. The police spend the entire night digging through suspected burial sites. Every search ends the same way, nothing. Joong-ho, now released from custody, refuses to sit still. While the police chase weak leads, he continues investigating on his own, tracking down people connected to Young-min in hopes of finding something useful. Joong-ho later heads to Mi-jin's apartment with an officer to collect DNA samples. After forcing their way inside, Joong-ho discovers something he never expected. Mi-jin has a young daughter, Eun-ji, who's alone in the apartment. After getting the things they need, he reluctantly takes her along, unable to leave the child by herself. He continues the investigation into Young-min's past. Following a lead to Young-min's hometown, Joong-ho uncovers a disturbing piece of history. Years earlier, Young-min served 3 years in prison for lobotomizing his own nephew. One former prostitute reveals that Young-min had been one of her clients, but she describes him less as threatening and more as deeply disturbed. According to her, he was impotent and constantly contacted her after their meeting, sending obsessive messages and unsettling photos until she finally blocked his number. The conversation gives Joong-ho a clearer picture of the man they are dealing with. Young-min's violence is driven by frustration and humiliation. While Joong-ho follows up on a lead later that night, Yoon-ji wanders off after spotting a woman who resembles her mother. Moments later, she is hit in an accident. Joong-ho eventually finds her injured and quickly rushes her to the hospital. During another interrogation at the station, an investigator decides to use the new information while questioning Joong-ho. He cleverly suggests that Young-min's impotence may be the real reason he's murdering innocent women. The remark instantly triggers him. Suddenly, Young-min, who has remained calm and seemingly innocent, snaps and violently attacks the interrogator in front of everyone. Back at Young-min's house, Mi-jin regains consciousness. She is barely hanging on, weakened from blood loss, but the instinct to survive still pushes her forward. Using broken tiles, she slowly cuts through the ropes binding her wrists. Mi-jin smashes a window and drags herself outside, collapsing hard onto the ground. As she struggles through the yard, she discovers horrifying traces of human remains scattered around the property. Barely able to stand, Mi-jin escapes into the lonely street, managing herself until she stumbles into a nearby convenience store. She recounts her ordeal to the elderly shopkeeper, who sympathizes with her and allows her to use the phone to call for help. Mi-jin tries calling Joong-ho, but Joong-ho never notices the phone ringing in his pocket. His mind is consumed by the race against time and the fear that Young-min could soon walk free. And that fear becomes reality. With no concrete evidence strong enough to justify formal charges, the police release Young-min. At the same time, the prosecutor orders Joong-ho's arrest for assaulting Young-min and taking the law into his own hands. During transport, Joong-ho outsmarts the officers escorting him, overpowers them, and escapes. The situation takes a devastating turn. After being released from custody, Young-min leaves the station under quiet surveillance. One of the detectives trails him from a distance, hoping to uncover his address. On the way, Young-min stops at the same convenience store where Mi-jin is to get soda. The elderly shop owner notices the bruises on Young-min's face and asks what happened to him. Young-min replies that he was attacked by a crazy man. The shopkeeper then mentions that another woman who had also been attacked is at the back of the store. Not knowing Young-min is the attacker, she asks him to stay and protect them while they wait for the police to arrive. Hearing this, Young-min's expression changes. He asks the shopkeeper for a hammer, pretending he wants it for protection. The moment she hands it over, he turns on her and kills her first. He then proceeds to the back. Terrified, she tries to remain still, hoping he will think she is already dead. But her body betrays her. Her hands tremble uncontrollably from fear and trauma. Realizing she is still alive, he finishes what he started back at the house. By the time the police arrive, Young-min is gone with no trace. Not long after, Joong-ho arrives at the scene, drenched in sweat and struggling to catch his breath after running the entire way there. He finds the police have already cordoned off the convenience store. Joong-ho desperately tries to push past the yellow tape, but officers restrain him. Inside, forensic teams move through the bloody crime scene while Detective Oh stands nearby in heavy silence. He cannot even bring himself to look Joong-ho in the eye. The truth becomes painfully clear to Joong-ho, leaving him devastated. The brutality of the killings quickly becomes national news. Media outlets swarm the case. Humiliated by the disaster, the police pour everything they have into the hunt for Young-min. News soon leaks to the public that they released a confessed killer, only for him to murder again immediately after walking free. The scandal explodes across the city. Police surveillance tightens around the area. Young-min realizes that this time, the police are fully convinced he is responsible for the murders. At night, he begins digging through the backyard, burying the evidence of his crimes. Meanwhile, a devastated Joong-ho continues chasing every lead he can find. His search eventually brings him to a local church, where he notices one of the church statues closely resembles the religious drawings he discovered earlier in Young-min's old room during his investigation. The connection immediately catches his attention. The priest then explains that the statue was sculpted by Mr. Park, while Young-min once worked under him as an assistant. He then directs Joong-ho to Mr. Park's house. Joong-ho heads there immediately. He arrives just as Young-min is preparing to disappear. Fueled by rage, Joong-ho pounces on Young-min and drags him back inside. The two men engage in a brutal fight across the cramped, blood-stained house, leaving each other badly injured. As Young-min gradually gains the upper hand and viciously batters him, Joong-ho suddenly notices Mi-jin's severed head preserved inside a fish tank. The sight pushes him over the edge. Barely holding on, Joong-ho blindly reaches beside him and grabs his hammer. Using the last of his strength, he swings upward. The hammer crashes into Young-min's skull, instantly dropping him and turning the fight around. Joong-ho begins striking him repeatedly. Just as he prepares to finish Young-min off for good, Detective Oh and the other officers storm inside and stop him before he can land the final blow. Young-min is taken away as the police begin excavating the yard, uncovering the bodies of several women who had disappeared without anyone truly noticing. Later, Joong-ho makes his way to the hospital and quietly sits beside Mi-jin's young daughter, holding her hand. The poor child is now left to grow up without her mother, while Joong-ho is crushed by the guilt of knowing he sent Mi-jin to her death and still failed to save her. In the end, justice came too late, and Joong-ho was left carrying the weight of what happened forever. If you enjoyed this recap, subscribe and turn on the bell icon for more dark thriller stories and unforgettable movies. See you in the next one.